Review Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the CEO and founder of Buildly, Buildly, author of the book as well of the Radical Therapy for Software Teams, no other than Mr. Gregory Lind.
Hi, Daniel.
Welcome, Mr. Gregory. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think you hit the big notes there. Buildly, or Buildly IO, as it's sometimes known as well, is a software organization. We build cloud native software tools for mostly for startups right now, but also for enterprise. And we focus a lot on product management and a post agile world where you can use AI tools to build faster and build products and manage them faster as well. Beyond that, I've founded a few other companies before that. One was Humanitech in Berlin, another Tola Data that I started in Portland, Oregon, and then it moved to well, it started off, I guess, technically in Saigon, Vietnam, and then moved to Berlin as well, and then finished recently with Buildly. It started in Brooklyn, and now it's here in Portland, Oregon. And yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you about the book and other things as well. So
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Greg. So let's talk about the radical therapy metaphor. Why frame team management as a therapy? What specific dysfunction in software teams does this approach diagnose and treat the traditional management misses?
yeah. I always start off when I do talks. I talk about therapists and the parallel to managers sometimes, especially for software teams. If you've worked with software developers or really just any sort of uh, type A personality, we call them like geeks or nerds sometimes in culture, but essentially those that are really technical. Have a tendency to be less verbal and have a difficult time expressing themselves sometimes. And so a lot of times you feel like you are helping them through that, managing and being somewhat of a therapist, listening, helping to them get better at communicating, helping to work through issues and communication obviously causes problems within a team to where then you have to help others as well and stakeholders. And so as a software developer, as a manager, as a CEO, you often have to deal with folks like that. And I think that the analogy works, to a lot of different teams, but we, especially at the publisher, we wanted to decided to really focus on software development teams first, and then maybe go in later as we continue into some more of the other types of teams, technical teams or not, that could benefit from that kind of idea. But the first part of it is about communication and then transparency within an organization, within a team. And then I think the other part of it is about building diverse and remote teams and how to manage that clearly.
What are the most common symptoms of a team that needs a radical therapy? Is it constant burnout, quiet quitting, or toxic communication, or something else?
Those are good ones. I think those are often really, I guess I wouldn't say easy, but they're a little bit more clear and easy to find in some cases. I think the more difficult ones to find are exactly kind of what we talked about, where there's communication gaps. There's things being dropped, deadlines being missed, and sometimes you put that up to somebody being lazy, let's say, or just having too much on their plate, or maybe they're having technical struggles, knowledge struggles, things like that. Identifying those, a lot of times that those come back to not just your team and the work environment, but also to how their external life, their the work life balance problem. I think that a lot of teams have can be identified really early on as parts of burnout, right? But it also, I think, goes beyond burnout to just within a team struggling to communicate, struggling to manage, struggling to meet deadlines. You can see those problems manifest themselves as similar symptoms that a burnout problem might have, but maybe it's just a temporary problem at home, a problem, personal life, or even just not getting along with someone on the team that can really sort of show themselves. And the way you can look for that is exactly looking at work backlogs and seeing how quickly someone's getting through tasks or not. And you can then sort of have those conversations in one-on-ones, or as part of a team discussion, or even just messages, just saying, hey, how's it going? A lot of times people just feel undervalued in a team, or like their voices aren't heard. And those are great ways to sort of find the quiet person who's not really speaking up, and not really having that opportunity to express themselves. A lot of times that will manifest itself later in missed deadlines and just feeling like you're not valued as part of the team.
In your model, is the therapy focus on fixing individual team members or on healing the broader team system, process, and culture?
Yeah, it is really more about process and culture. I think one of the things that I focus on in the book is the evolution of software development practices from early days up to waterfall type processes, upfront design processes, into agile, and then the various flavors and derivations of agile into what we sort of do now, which is a kind of custom adaptive process for each project. I think most people do. Some people really use a specific process or specific version of agile, but and follow those exact prescriptions. But I think what's happening in our book and what we're talking about is the the evolution of software development practices to where you're moving beyond those weekly sprints or bi-weekly sprints or even monthly sometimes. For smaller teams, especially startups, they work in days or hours now with AI. And so you're doing releases through CI/CD tools, or continuous integration and delivery tools, uh, in such a rapid pace that it's difficult for even a seasoned product manager to keep up with the keeping the requirements in line, keeping all of the different backlogs aligned, different sources. So one of the things we talk about is really about, for a team, managing your process as a group in one tool, or maybe two in terms of communication, and then really focusing on uh, quick deliverables, quick wins, focused delivery timelines, and making sure that those milestones are clear and the communication is clear, and using AI tools wherever you can to get rid of the redundant and boring work, let's say, and then really focus your time on the more complex, creative, and even innovative solutions as a team, as opposed to individuals working. And I think cloud native, which is another process that we talk about a lot in the book, combined with a more radical process, which is kind of what we're calling this. Is it's the best of both worlds, right? It's something that's flexible, fast, and helps you manage teams really well, as well as creating this culture of adaptiveness, right? A culture of uh, focused, friendly sharing, being positive in your feedback, and really being sort of direct with your team and your about timelines and where things are done, so that you're transparent from the very beginning. I think a lot of those problems, at least at a team level, get solved, and then you can focus still on the individual problems as well, because that's obviously going to affect the rest of the team. But really, getting rid of those larger communication gaps and transparency gaps helps so much with that. That you'll find that a lot of your time is now freed up to focus on the important innovative work.
Important innovator work. Well, that good job, Mr. Greg. And how do you define positive motivation in high pressure, deadline driven environment? And how is fundamentally different from using urgency or fear as a driver?
That's a good question. I think, in terms of, if I'm understanding the gist of your question overall, I think in terms of motivating and stress, those are things that have different effects on different people, right? So I some people are motivated by deadlines and stress and want to check those boxes. They want to push things out and be part of a productive team and show that at the end of the day that they've made progress and see something get done. And the deadlines aren't as important. There's a really good book, Creativity Inc., that I was sort of I think inspirational for me early on when I started to work as a CTO. Um, that talks about the difference between a rock star and a superstar. And I think this comes from time at Apple, where they have team members that are what they would call rock stars, and the rock stars were more of a rock steady approach to work. Right, they were those checkbox folks that really wanted to get things done, and they handle stress really well. They don't get too worried about deadlines because they feel like they've got their tasks assigned. What they're not great at is working outside of a box, right? They're not good at being ultra creative or coming up with new ideas sometimes. And for that group, they had a group that they called superstars. And those were let's say, really focused on growth. They really wanted their career to continue up, and they were looking for any opportunity to showcase their skills. The superstar approach was great for those types of creative endeavors, or where you needed to push outside the box and do something new. It doesn't mean that certainly we can block everybody into these boxes. That's not what I want to do, and not what I think the let's say the philosophy of our process is. Not, is It's about everyone sort of learning every skill and being able to be involved wherever they want to be involved. But when you break down in these roles like that, a lot of times people fall into one or two of those categories or can kind of cross. And I really like that idea of the superstar. They don't handle the stress as well, right? Because and you can see that a lot of times in creatives where they get really frustrated and focused when deadlines move on them, or don't handle change sometime as well. And again, not all of them, but in a broader scope, sometimes you can see this. And I think that's where having a team that's balanced with superstars and rock stars, so to speak, you can look for those types or those people that are really comfortable in those roles and balance your team that way. And it helps to manage that kind of stress. So you don't have to worry too much about deadlines and who's going to step up and make sure that those happen, because you'll see that. And you can then start to build overlapping tasks that the superstars can work on, big development tasks that push them out forward. And you know that they're eventually going to move on to another team because that's their goal. But the rock stars will be there and will continue to work on that, and they might move on to another team as well. But you'll, as long as you have a balance of those, you go and look for somebody that fits into that role the next time. And then deadlines and things like that really start to, the stress gets manages itself at that point. there's still going to be timelines, sudden, what we used to call the executive pipeline, right? Where you would have requests that come from a CEO and just disrupt everything. That's really going to cause a lot of stress. And hopefully, at an organization level, you can push back on those kind of things or have a cue for that. But for overall, you're well equipped to handle those types of sudden stressors that happen.
The remote work challenge, Mr. Greg. What is the single biggest psychological challenge of remote work that radical therapy is designed to solve?
Yeah, I That's a really big one, and a lot of the reason why we brought this up. I was working remotely early 2010s with teams all across the world with an organization called Mercy Corps, and we had team members that we were working with, and like I mentioned before, in Middle East, Kenya, Africa, all over Africa, South America, and Asia. And you having team meetings sometimes could be uh, very difficult. It's finding time zones, right? But I think the biggest issue that we always run into, and I see still, is a remote worker who doesn't feel like they're part of the team, right? They don't feel included in discussions. They feel like sometimes design decisions or management decisions or product decisions happen in the office or even just by a certain part of the team, and they don't feel included in that. They don't see clear communication and they don't see clear priorities sometimes. So what we do, I think, as a remote team, but also as just sort of a transparency initiative inside an organization, is we encourage folks to communicate as much as they can in Slack. Every meeting, I think anymore this happens where everybody, but in Google Meet or a any kind of remote meeting software, and then on top of that, when you're finding a decision has been made, you're putting those not just into a product backlog, but you are adding those to the notes and you're sharing those with the rest of the team so that you clearly have marked that here's where a decision was made, and then decision gets connected back to your overall backlog. And that backlog, having one backlog as opposed to multiple product backlogs, a design backlog, a product backlog, a software backlog, a sprint backlog, bringing all of those together in one, which is kind of what we do with Buildly Labs, is provide a way for business tasks, marketing tasks, budgeting tasks, software tasks, all of those to be managed in one place and one with one set of filters and one set of integrations, and then allowing the teams to be able to filter down to what they need, but also see those connections to those other things. So if you've got KPIs that are organizational, you can manage those in the business tasks, connect those directly to a feature or an issue or a bug, and say, this is how we need to have this prioritized. And then you can connect that back to your notes, see where those decisions were made, and you can clearly see that feel like you're included in that process, as well as also understand why that's a priority, that what you're working on is important for the organization.
Mr. Gregory, as a founder of Buildly and author, what are your short term and long term goals?
Well, boy, short term, I guess right now, my focus is just on growing the community around Buildly, both our open source tools and from a developer standpoint, as well as our product management tools, getting it in front of more startups, especially entrepreneurs who are interested in starting a new venture, want to build something software based, don't know where to start. I think that's my goal, is expanding that user base more and more, getting in front of more people and talking with more founders and finding out what their challenges are and seeing what we can do to help them, especially things outside of the fundraising realm often get pushed back. People go through accelerators and they focus so much time on their pitch deck and their sales, and they don't, the product gets kind of left behind. So that's where we want to help, is help people focus on product, get better. And then I think in terms of longer term goals, both for Billy and myself, uh, it's a lot of the same. But I think the other goal that I have, sort of, not just as an author and a founder, but really just as a a human being, is the concern around AI and how it's managed in the near future. Not just from an ethical standpoint, although that is important. It's something that we talk about in the book, is how to use ethical AI and test for AI to make sure that it is ethical. But also, I see more and more developers and just people responding, even resumes and writing uh, books, even sometimes using AI almost exclusively. And my worry with that, and just AI in general, is that as a race, we become very lazy and dependent on this. It's very much similar to the problem with web that we talked about in Web 2.0 times, right? Is that all the answers are right there. You don't have to do the research, do any critical thinking around how to solve these problems, and AI is just going to make that worse. And AI, for it to be useful and better, needs new information, right? Large language models, all they're doing is just going out and looking at data sources and then collecting those back in. And if there's no new data, then it's just going to start feeding on itself. And I think that's the thing that I push for and look for the most, is teaching people how to use AI appropriately to get rid of the mundane work, but then focus on your own work where you can be creative and you can be innovative and put those new ideas out there. And yeah, AI might pick up on some of those things and it might improve that, but that isn't that what we want, right? We want people out there teaching each other, and AI is going to be teaching people as well. So it's a tool for that. And I think that's the my larger, longer term goal, is to look at building tools and continuing to work with founders and others that are really focused on that, like building out a future where AI is a tool that we use and not something that has taken over a lot of our thought process, and that critical thinking and original thinking, creative thinking, all of that is still done by humans and continues to grow and get better because of AI.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Gregory, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Well, I would maybe start looking at. Uh, I think finding your own ideas, right? Finding your own um, tools to build them. I always encourage people, especially software developers, don't be discouraged by the rise of AI. It's a tool that's going to make you better and help you teach. So I would, don't be afraid of those things. Jump in and use them and learn about them, and but then figure out how to use them best for you to move past the boring stuff and get into the creative and unique stuff. Like, those are the kind of tools I want to see people building, right? A better task management system that can maybe even predict what my next week's tasks are going to be, help manage my calendar better. Like, it's, those are on the way, but they're just not quite there yet. And so those are the things that I would say, if you're going to be a founder, if you're going to be a startup developer, or if you're just going to work in business now, you have to accept that AI is here and you're not going to be able to compete without it. So you're looking for those types of tools and build those types of tools that help people reduce boring, redundant tasks down to zero, and they can focus on the creative work.
The creative work, and thank you for that advice, Mr. Gregory. And can you please recommend a book or books that influenced your journey?
Yeah, well, I mentioned Ed Cattermoll's Creativity Inc. I think that's a great one. Um, Radical Candor by Kim Scott is another radical book. that was influential in my sort of growth to this point. And one of the books that's a little more on the creative side that I and an author that I really like is named Cory Doctorow, and one that early influenced me around AI and society and how things might evolve is called Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom. And part of that is because he released that as a basically a open source book. It's out as part of a I think it was a larger Tor Books distribution, but now it's under a Creative Commons license, and you can download it for free, read it anywhere. But it's just a great book about the future history and potential around humanity and how they might evolve, and specifically around the economy of the future. And so it's a great look, and it's been, I think, reused in a lot of science fiction since it was written, which is just like 2004, I think. But yeah, it's another great book to look at from a more creative side and look at the future, potential future.
Thank you for that recommended books, Mr. Greg. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review, Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Greg, ultimately, in your frameworks, what is conflict refrain from something to be avoided into a valuable diagnostic tool for uncovering deeper team issues?
Ooh, that's a good question. To me, a valuable diagnostic tool is just from a team perspective, is the one-on-one meetings and having those conversations individually. It doesn't have to be long. It's a weekly, bi-weekly one-on-one meeting, having those conversations, and just making sure that you're asking the right questions. You know, not it shouldn't be a just a how are you doing on your tasks? Why aren't you getting your tasks done? It should be focused on how are they as individuals, and what troubles are they running into. It's very similar to a stand-up process, right? But you asking them as a person, you know, what have you been doing lately? What are you going to do the rest of the week? And what's really stopping you from getting things done or being happy, I guess. So making sure that you're asking those questions with your team, and finding out how they're doing as individuals.
Mr. Gregory Lind, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, or your business itself?
Yeah, please check out Buildly first off, buildly.io. Pretty easy to find. And then radicaltherapy.dev is where you can find the book.
Yes, people, support Mr. Gregory Lind because if we support him for sure, more and more empowering books, more and more empowering business to come. So, Mr. Gregory, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you. It was nice to meet you.
Yes, likewise. More to come, people. See you soon.